Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UN's Horizon, watching the stars drift by through the main screen. It was a quiet Tuesday morning in space, and Jake was drinking his coffee when the emergency signal came through. The red lights started flashing, and the ship's computer made that annoying beeping sound it always made when something bad was happening. "Captain, we're getting a distress call from Kepler 7 Research Station," said Lieutenant Amy Collins from her station. Her voice was tight with worry. "Commander Lisa Grant is calling for immediate help." Jake put down his coffee cup and stood up. He'd known Lisa for years. She was tough and smart, and she never called for help unless things were really bad. "Put her through," he said. The main screen changed to show Lisa's face. She looked scared, which was not like her at all. Behind her, Jake could see people running around and red emergency lights flashing. "Jake, thank God you're nearby," Lisa said quickly. "We're under attack by ships we've never seen before. Came out of nowhere, and they're destroying everything." "What kind of ships?" Jake asked. "Are they Confederation vessels that went rogue?" "No, nothing like that," Lisa replied. "These ships are huge, black, and they move in ways that don't make sense. Our weapons can't touch them. They have some kind of shields that stop everything we throw at them. We've lost 3 stations already, and they're heading for the colonies." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Outer Rim territories were home to millions of people from dozens of different species. If these unknown attackers were targeting civilian areas, this could be the start of something terrible. "How long do you have?" Jake asked. "Maybe an hour before they reach us," Lisa said. "Jake, I've been studying these ships. They're using technology we've never seen. Energy patterns that don't match anything in our databases. Whoever they are, they're not from our part of the galaxy." The transmission cut to static, and Jake knew that Kepler 7 was gone. He turned to his crew. "Set course. For Earth, maximum speed. Send a priority message to Admiral Kevin Hayes at Earth Defense Command. Tell him we have a first contact situation, and it's not friendly." The next few hours were the longest of Jake's life. As the Horizon raced toward Earth, reports kept coming. In from across the Outer Rim, station after station went dark. Entire colonies stopped responding to calls. Whatever these aliens were, they were moving fast and hitting hard. When they reached Earth, Jake was called to an emergency meeting at Defense Command headquarters. The conference room was packed with officers from every human ship in the area, plus representatives from the other Confederation species. Admiral Hayes looked older than Jake had ever seen him. "Gentlemen and ladies," Hayes began, "we are facing the greatest threat the Confederation has ever encountered. 3 hours ago, an unknown alien force began attacking our outer territories. We're calling them the Vexnari Empire, based on communications we've intercepted." A hologram appeared in the center of the room showing one of the alien ships. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest Confederation vessel. Its hull was black as space, with strange purple lights running along its surface. The shape was wrong somehow, like it had been designed by minds that thought differently than any known species. "These ships have technology that surpasses anything we've seen," Hayes continued. "Their shields can stop our most powerful weapons. They move through space using some kind of distortion drive that lets them appear anywhere without warning. And most troubling of all, they seem to know exactly how we're going to attack before we do it." Commander Tony Martinez raised his hand. "Sir, how is that possible? Are they reading our communications?" "We don't think so," Hayes replied. "Dr. Helen Roberts has been studying their tactics. Helen, would you explain?" Dr. Roberts stood up. She was the Confederation's top expert on alien psychology, and she looked worried.
"Oh."
"The Vexnari seem to use some kind of biomechanical technology," she said. "Their ships appear to be partly alive, with computer systems linked directly to organic brains. This gives them the ability to process information and make decisions faster than any of our artificial intelligence systems. They can predict our moves because they think faster than we do," Hayes added. "Every battle plan we make, every tactic we try, they've already figured out the counterattack before we even start moving." The room was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Captain Danny Foster spoke up. "Do we do? If they can outthink us and outgun us, How do we fight them? Hayes looked around the room. It's what we need to figure out. The Altarian Council has declared a state of emergency. Every Confederation species is mobilizing their fleets. But if we keep fighting the way we always have, we're going to lose. Jake thought about this. He had spent his whole career learning Confederation military tactics. Everything was based on careful planning, computer analysis, and logical decision-making. The Confederation had enjoyed peace for over 2 centuries because their enemies could be outthought and outplanned. But what do you do when your enemy can think faster than you, sir? Jake said. What about their psychology? Do we know anything about how these Vexnari think? Dr. Roberts nodded. From what we can tell, they're completely logical. Every decision is based on mathematics and probability. Their entire society seems to be built around efficiency and perfect planning. It's actually quite impressive. If it wasn't being used to destroy us, that might be their weakness, Jake said slowly. An idea was starting to form in his mind. If they're completely logical, they might not understand illogical behavior. Hayes looked interested. You mean? Well, sir, humans have a reputation in the Confederation for being ... unpredictable. Other species always say we do things that don't make sense. Maybe that's not a bug, it's a feature. Before Hayes could respond, alarms started going off throughout the building. A young officer ran into the room. Sir, the Vexnari fleet has broken through the outer defenses. They're heading straight for the Sol system. Hayes stood up quickly. All right, people, this is it. We're going to find out if Confederation tactics can work against these aliens. All ships are to engage the enemy according to standard battle protocols. As the meeting broke up and officers rushed to their ships, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that standard protocols weren't going to be enough. The Confederation had always won by being smarter than their enemies. But what happened when the enemy was smarter than them? He thought about his conversation with Dr. Roberts. The Vexnari were completely logical and efficient. They could predict Confederation tactics because those tactics were also logical and efficient. But humans, as other species often pointed out, weren't always logical. Sometimes they did things that didn't make sense even to themselves. As Jake headed to his ship, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, not making sense might be exactly what they needed. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and Jake Morrison had a feeling that everything the Confederation thought they knew about warfare was about to change. The question was whether humanity's reputation for unpredictability would be enough to save them all, or if it would just make their defeat more chaotic. Outside, the first Vexnari ships appeared in Earth's sky, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. The Battle of Earth lasted 6 hours and ended in complete disaster. General Patricia Wells watched from the command center as Confederation ships fell one by one to the Vexnari fleet. Every tactic they tried, every strategy they used, the aliens had already prepared for it. It was like fighting an enemy who could see the future. Pull back all remaining ships, Wells ordered. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt sick. They had lost 60% of the fleet, including some of their best captains. The Vexnari had barely taken any damage at all. Admiral Hayes looked defeated. How did they know exactly where we would attack? It's like they had our battle plans. Before we even made them, Wells had been thinking about the same thing. She was different from most Confederation officers. Before joining the Space Navy, she had studied old Earth military history. She knew about wars that were fought with bullets and bombs, where soldiers had to think fast and adapt quickly. Modern Confederation warfare was all about computers and careful planning, but maybe that was the problem. Sir, I think we've been fighting this war wrong, Wells said. We're trying to outthink an enemy that can think faster than us. Maybe we need to stop thinking so much. Well, Hayes looked confused. What do you mean? The Vexnari can predict our moves because our moves are logical. They follow patterns that computers can analyze. But what if we stop being logical? Before Hayes could answer, Lieutenant Ryan Blake burst into the room. He looked exhausted, and his uniform was torn. General Wells, you need to hear this. During the battle, something strange happened. Ryan had been leading a squadron of human fighters. When the Vexnari attacked, His ships were old and slow compared to the alien vessels, so he knew they couldn't win in a straight fight. Instead, he had done something that went against all his training. "I stopped following the attack plan," Ryan explained. "When I saw how easily they were destroying our main fleet, I just started flying crazy. Making random turns, shooting at nothing, pretending to retreat, and then attacking from weird angles." Wells leaned forward. "What happened?" "They couldn't hit me," Ryan said, still sounding surprised. "For about 10 minutes, the Vexnari ships couldn't get a lock on my squadron. Their targeting systems kept missing us. It was like they couldn't figure out what we were doing." This was the first good news Wells had heard all day. "How many ships did you lose?" "That's the weird part," Ryan replied. "We didn't lose any. We were the only squadron to come back intact." Wells felt something click in her mind. She turned to Dr. Helen Roberts, who had been quietly listening to the conversation. "Doctor, you said the Vexnari use biomechanical computers linked to organic brains? What if those brains can only process logical behavior?" Dr. Roberts thought about this. "It's possible. If their entire society is based on efficiency and logic, they might not understand truly random actions. Their prediction systems might only work when they can see a pattern." Over the next few days, Wells put together a new kind of military unit. She called it the Chaos Squadron, and she filled it with the most unpredictable humans she could find. Pilots who had been disciplined for not following orders, engineers who liked to build things that shouldn't work, soldiers who trusted their gut feelings more than their computers. Sergeant Tony Martinez was one of the first to volunteer. He had always been considered a problem soldier because he couldn't stick to standard procedures. "Finally," he said, when Wells explained the mission, "someone wants me to be weird." The first test came when a small Vexnari fleet attacked the mining colony at Titan Station. Wells sent Tony and his team ahead of the main Confederation force. Their job was simple: be as unpredictable as possible. Tony's team used old Earth tactics that hadn't been seen in space for centuries. They set up fake radio signals to confuse the enemy. They attacked from directions that made no military sense. They even used psychological warfare, broadcasting Earth music and random human conversations on all frequencies. The results were amazing. The Vexnari fleet spent 3 hours trying to figure out what the humans were doing. Their ships moved in confused patterns, unable to predict where the next attack would come from. When the main Confederation fleet arrived, the aliens were so disorganized that they were easily defeated. But the real breakthrough came from an accident. During the battle, Tony's ship was damaged, and his communications system started malfunctioning. It was sending out random electronic noise instead of proper signals. Tony was about to fix it when he noticed something incredible. "General Wells," he reported after the battle, "the Vexnari ships couldn't detect me when my comm system was broken. It was like I was invisible to their sensors." Dr. Roberts immediately understood what this meant. She ran to her lab and started analyzing human electronic signatures compared to other Confederation species. What she found changed everything. "It's our brains," she explained to Wells and the other officers. "Human neural patterns evolved from millions of years of chaotic survival situations. Other Confederation species developed their intelligence in more stable environments. Our brainwaves look like random noise to Vexnari sensors." Captain Danny Foster was the first to volunteer for the stealth mission. His job was to get close to a Vexnari ship and plant recording devices so they could study the enemy's technology up close. Danny's ship drifted through space, powered down and silent. To Vexnari sensors, it looked like just another piece of space debris. Danny barely breathed as his ship floated past 3 massive alien vessels. His human brain patterns blended perfectly into the background electromagnetic noise of space. He managed to attach monitoring devices to the hull of the largest Vexnari ship. For 2 days, they recorded everything: communications, energy patterns, internal ship functions. What they learned was both fascinating and terrifying. The Vexnari were even more advanced than anyone had imagined. Their ships were partially alive, with organic computers that could process millions of calculations per second. But these biological systems had one major weakness: they couldn't handle truly random input. It's like they've never encountered chaos before, Dr. Roberts explained. Their entire species evolved to value order and predictability. When they meet something truly random, their systems don't know how to respond. Meanwhile, engineer Kate Williams was having her own breakthrough. She had been studying the weapons that had failed against Vexnari shields. Every Confederation weapon was designed for maximum efficiency and accuracy. They followed perfect ballistic paths that computers could easily calculate. Kate decided to try something different. She took a basic human projectile weapon and deliberately made it worse. She added random weight distribution to the bullets. She included small explosive charges that went off at unpredictable times. She even painted the projectiles in bright colors that served no purpose except to be silly. When she tested these weapons against captured Vexnari shield technology, something amazing happened. The shields couldn't adapt to weapons that worked in ways they weren't supposed to work. The defensive systems were looking for logical attack patterns. And Kate's weapons didn't have any logic at all. General Wells looked at all this information and started to smile for the first time since the war began. The Confederation had been trying to beat the Vexnari at their own game. But humans didn't need to be better at logic and planning. They just needed to be more human. She sent a message to every human ship in the fleet. Forget everything you learned about proper military tactics. From now on, we fight like humans. The Battle of New Geneva would go down in history as the moment everything changed. Colonel Steve Adams floated in his fighter cockpit, watching the massive Vexnari fleet approach the colony world. This time, things would be different. This time, they would fight like humans. "All right, everyone," Steve said into his radio. "Remember what General Wells told us? No battle plans, no computer assistance. Yes, just trust your gut and do whatever feels right." His squadron was a mix of human and alien pilots. The alien crews looked nervous. They had spent their entire careers following careful plans and logical strategies. The idea of fighting without a plan scared them more than the enemy did. Lieutenant Ben Clark was flying next to Steve. He was young and had always been criticized by his instructors for being too creative in training exercises. Today, his creativity might save them all. "Steve, should we attack their command ship first?" Ben asked. "Nope," Steve replied. "Let's attack that small ship on the left for no reason at all." The Vexnari fleet had arranged itself in a perfect defensive formation. Their computers had calculated the most likely attack patterns and positioned their ships accordingly. They were ready for logical military strikes against their command vessels. Their weapon platforms and their shield generators, they were not. Ready for 20 human fighters to suddenly attack a random supply ship that posed no threat to anyone? The Vexnari response was immediate but confused. Their ships started moving to protect the supply vessel, breaking their perfect formation. While they were repositioning, Steve's squadron disappeared into an asteroid field, leaving the aliens wondering what had just happened. Phase 2, Steve announced. "Everyone pick a different target. Ben, you attack their biggest ship. Lisa, you go after that one with the pretty lights. Tony, just fly around in circles and shoot at empty space." Commander Mary Johnson was watching the battle from the Confederation command ship. She had been working with General Wells to develop what they called the Chaos Doctrine. The idea was simple. If the enemy could predict logical behavior, then the solution was to be completely illogical. "It's working," Mary reported to Wells. "The Vexnari ships are moving in confused patterns. They keep trying to form defensive positions, but our pilots attack before they can set up." Dr. Peter Clark was also watching the battle, but he was more interested in what was happening inside the human pilots' brains. He had sensors monitoring their neural activity during combat. What he saw amazed him. "General Wells, you need to see this," Peter said. "The human pilot's brain activity is off the charts. When they're under stress and fighting for their lives, their creativity levels spike beyond anything we've ever measured." Wells looked at the brain scan readings. During peaceful times, human brains showed normal patterns of electrical activity, but during combat, when adrenaline was flowing and death was nearby, human brains started working in ways that seemed almost magical. "They're solving problems faster than our computers," Peter explained. "Not by being more logical, but by making intuitive leaps that skip over normal thinking processes. It's like stress turns humans into idea-generating machines. Back in the battle, Steve Adams was proving this theory correct. When 3 Vexnari fighters cornered him near a damaged space station, he did something that no military manual would. Ever recommend? He flew his ship directly into the station's old garbage disposal system. The Vexnari pilots followed him, expecting to destroy his ship in the narrow tunnel. Instead, Steve used the garbage disposal's crushing mechanisms to destroy 2 of the enemy fighters. He escaped through a waste ejection port that was barely big enough for his ship. "How did you even think of that?" Ben asked over the radio. "I didn't think," Steve replied. "I just saw the garbage chute and had a feeling it might work." Lieutenant Angela Davis was having similar success with her intelligence work. The Confederation had been trying to decode Vexnari communications using traditional cryptography methods. All the logical approaches had failed. So Angela decided to try something different. Instead of looking for mathematical patterns in the alien messages, she started looking for emotional ones. She treated the Vexnari communications like they were human conversations and tried to guess what the aliens might be feeling. It worked. The Vexnari language had emotional undertones that their logical minds didn't even realize they were including. By reading between the lines, Angela could predict what the enemy fleet would do next. There. Getting frustrated, she reported to the command center. "The Vexnari commanders are arguing with each other. They can't understand why their battle computers aren't working against us." Captain Nick Thompson was making the most of this confusion. He had been given command of an old cargo ship and told to cause as much trouble as possible. Nick had always been good at making something from nothing, and today he had a chance to prove it. His cargo ship was filled with junk from Earth: old televisions, broken cars, kitchen appliances, and random pieces of metal. Nick had welded it all together into what he called the ugliest weapon in space. When a Vexnari patrol found his ship, they scanned it with their advanced sensors. The readings they got back made no sense. The ship appeared to be armed with devices that couldn't possibly work according to any known laws of physics. The confusion gave Nick just enough time to ram his cargo ship into the Vexnari vessel. The collision destroyed both ships. But it also sent a message to the alien fleet. Humans would use anything as a weapon, even things that weren't supposed to be weapons. Dr. Helen Roberts was studying intercepted Vexnari communications and finding more evidence of their confusion. The aliens were sending reports back to their home fleet that described human tactics as impossible and contradictory to all military logic. "They're starting to question their own systems," Helen reported to General Wells. "Some of their commanders are suggesting that their prediction computers might be malfunctioning." But the computers weren't broken. They were simply facing something they had never encountered before: an enemy that didn't follow rules. The turning point came when Captain Rachel Murphy arrived with reinforcements. Her fleet was made up of old Earth ships that had been retired from service years ago. These vessels used primitive technology by Confederation standards: kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and simple radar systems. To the Vexnari, these old ships were like ghosts. Their advanced sensors were designed to detect sophisticated Confederation technology. They couldn't properly scan vessels that used such basic systems. Rachel's fleet attacked the main Vexnari formation using tactics that were hundreds of years old. They fired simple metal bullets at enemy ships. They used chemical rockets that left smoke trails across space. They even rammed enemy vessels when their ammunition ran out. The Vexnari shields, designed to stop energy weapons and sophistication. Projectiles had trouble dealing with chunks of metal flying through space. Their defensive systems kept trying to analyze the incoming projectiles and predict their paths. But there wasn't much to analyze. A bullet was just a bullet. By the end of the Battle of New Geneva, the Vexnari fleet was in full retreat. Had lost 12 ships to a Confederation force that should have been easily defeated. More importantly, they had lost their confidence in their own technology. General Wells received reports that the alien fleet was pulling back from 3 other star systems. For the first time since the war began, the Confederation was winning. "Vexnari are learning to fear us," Wells told her staff. "They don't understand how we think. and that scares them more than any weapon we could build. The galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the best way to win a war was to forget everything you knew about fighting. Admiral Susan Taylor stood on the bridge of the Un's Liberty, watching her fleet prepare for the biggest battle of the war. 6 months had passed since the victory at New Geneva, and everything had changed. The Confederation was no longer running from the Vexnari. Now they were hunting them. "Admiral, all ships report ready," said Captain Jim Brooks from his station. "The human protocols are loaded into every computer system." Susan nodded. The human protocols were her idea. After seeing how effective human chaos could be, she had worked with Dr. Frank Lewis to create computer programs that could think more like humans. The programs didn't follow logical patterns. Instead, they made random decisions and trusted gut feelings that came from nowhere. It had taken months to train alien crews to use these systems. Most Confederation species found it physically painful to make decisions without proper analysis. But the results spoke for themselves. Ships using human protocols were 3 times more effective against Vexnari forces. Major Chris Robinson was leading a mixed squadron of human and alien fighters. His alien pilots still struggled with the Chaos Doctrine, but they were getting better. The Altarian pilot and his squadron had finally stopped asking for permission before every maneuver. "Remember," Chris told his pilots, "when in doubt, do something stupid. The enemy expects smart tactics. Give them dumb ones instead." Lieutenant Kate Davis was flying next to him in a ship that shouldn't have been able to fly at all. She had spent weeks modifying her fighter with random additions, extra engines pointing in wrong directions, weapons that fired backwards, and a coffee machine welded to the hull for no reason except that it seemed funny. "Chris, I'm reading Vexnari ships coming out of hyperspace," Kate reported. "Looks like their entire reserve fleet. The enemy force was massive. Over 200 ships, including their newest vessels, with upgraded technology." The Vexnari had spent months studying human tactics and developing countermeasures. Their commanders were confident they had solved the human problem. They were wrong, Dr. Frank. Lewis watched the battle from his mobile laboratory ship. He had discovered something amazing about human creativity during combat. The more dangerous the situation became, the more creative humans got. Fear and adrenaline didn't make them panic. Instead, it made them think of solutions that would never occur. To them, during peaceful times, "Admiral Taylor, the human brain activity readings are incredible," Frank reported. "Our pilots are generating new ideas faster than I can measure them." Susan could see what he meant. Captain Laura Bennett had just used her ship's waste disposal system to create a smokescreen. Commander Gary Mitchell was firing his ship's emergency flares as weapons. Lieutenant Alex Parker had somehow turned his communications array into a makeshift cannon. But the real surprise came from the alien crews. The Confederation pilots who had been training with human protocols were starting to think creatively too. A Centaurian captain used his ship's artificial gravity to throw asteroids at the enemy. An Altarian pilot flew her damaged ship in a spiral pattern that confused Vexnari targeting computers. "It's spreading," Frank said with excitement. "Human creativity is contagious. The other species are learning to be unpredictable." The Vexnari responded by deploying their secret weapon. A massive ship appeared at the center of their fleet, larger than anything they had shown before. Energy readings from the vessel were off the scale. "Admiral, that ship is doing something to local space," reported Science Officer Sam Wright. "It's changing the laws of physics around it." Susan felt her blood turn cold. A reality-altering weapon was beyond anything the Confederation could handle. If the Vexnari could change how physics worked, no human tactic would matter. The effects started immediately. Confederation ships found their engines working differently. Energy weapons fired in random directions. Computer systems started showing impossible readings. The Vexnari had created a zone where normal technology couldn't function properly. But something unexpected happened. While the Confederation's advanced systems failed, the primitive human modifications kept working. Kate Davis's backwards-firing weapons still fired backwards because that's what they were built to do. Laura Bennett's smokescreen still worked because it was just heated particles in space. More importantly, the human crews adapted to the changed physics faster than anyone else. When their ships started behaving strangely, they didn't panic or try to fix the systems. They just learned to fly differently. Corporal Alex Parker had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. His fighter had been damaged in the reality field and his life support systems were failing. Instead of retreating, he flew directly toward the Vexnari superweapon. "Alex, what are you doing?" Chris Robinson called over the radio. "Something really stupid," Alex replied.
Dad,
"The reality weapon is trying to change how everything works, right?"
don't.
"But what if it gets confused by something that already doesn't work?" "Right." Alex had modified his ship's power system in ways that violated basic engineering principles. His engines ran on a combination of fusion power and chemical batteries that shouldn't have been compatible. His weapons were powered by the ship's coffee maker. Nothing about his ship made sense. When he flew into the reality field, something strange happened. The weapon tried to analyze his ship's systems so it could change how they worked. But Alex's modifications were so illogical that the reality-altering computer couldn't figure out what rules they followed. "It's working," Frank Lewis reported. From his lab ship, the reality weapon is stuck in a feedback loop. It keeps trying to understand Parker's ship modifications, but they don't follow any logical pattern. Other human pilots saw what Alex was doing and followed his lead. Ships with the most ridiculous modifications flew into the reality field.
Ow.
The Vexnari weapon became more and more confused as it tried to process technology that shouldn't exist. Captain Julia Brooks volunteered for the most dangerous mission yet. Her ship was equipped with an experimental system that Frank Lewis had designed. It was a neural interface that connected directly to her brain, amplifying her natural creativity, but at a terrible cost. Using it would probably destroy her mind. "You don't have to do this," Admiral Taylor said over a private channel. "Yes, I do," Julia replied. "Someone has to show these aliens what human creativity really looks like." Julia activated the neural interface and flew straight at the superweapon. Her brain, enhanced by the experimental technology, started generating ideas at an impossible rate. She began modifying her ship's systems in real time, creating new weapons and defenses faster than the reality field could adapt. But the cost was enormous. Julia's neural patterns became so chaotic that they started affecting space around her ship. Reality began to break down in a small area, creating paradoxes that the Vexnari weapon couldn't handle. "The superweapon is overloading, Sam, right?" Reported it's trying to process too much illogical information at once. The Vexnari reality weapon began to collapse under the weight of human irrationality. Massive explosions rippled through space as the device tried to maintain contradictory physical laws at the same time. The energy feedback spread through the alien fleet, disabling their ships one by one. Julia's ship was destroyed in the explosion. But her sacrifice had won the battle. The Vexnari fleet was dead in space, their advanced technology useless against weapons they couldn't understand. Admiral Taylor looked at the wreckage of the enemy fleet and realized something important. Confederation had won this battle. But the war was far from over. The Vexnari still had their home fleet. And now they knew exactly how dangerous human creativity could be. The final battle would determine the fate of the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Gary Mitchell stood at the observation deck of the massive Confederation command ship, staring at the galactic barrier. Beyond that shimmering wall of energy lay the Vexnar home territory. After 2 years of war, this would be the final battle. "Sir, all fleets report ready," said Captain Tom Wilson. 3,000 ships from 40 different species, the largest force in Confederation history. Gary nodded but felt worried. The Vexnari had retreated to their home space after the disaster with their reality weapon. For 6 months, there had been no contact with them. Spy drones sent beyond. The barrier never returned. Nobody knew what the aliens were planning. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Vexnari," reported communications officer Lisa Park. "They want to talk." The main screen flickered to life, showing a Vexnari commander for the first time. The alien was tall and thin, with pale skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. "I am Supreme Commander of Vexillari Empire," the alien said. "You have proven more troublesome than expected. We offer you one chance to surrender. Return to your primitive worlds, and we will allow your species to exist as our servants." Gary stepped forward. "This is Fleet Admiral Mitchell of the Galactic Confederation. We reject your offer. Surrender now, and we'll treat your people fairly." Alien's expression didn't change. "You do not understand what you face. We have prepared our ultimate defense. Your chaos tactics will not work against us this time." The transmission ended, and the galactic barrier began to change. Instead of the usual shimmering energy field, it became solid black. No light escaped from the other side. Dr. Robert Shaw, the Confederation's chief scientist, ran scans on the barrier. "Admiral, they've turned their entire home territory into a reality-dead zone. Nothing works in there except basic physics. No advanced technology, no complex systems, nothing." Gary understood immediately. The Vexnari had learned from their previous defeats. If human chaos worked by confusing advanced systems, then the solution was to remove all advanced systems from the battlefield. "They want to fight us with primitive weapons only," Gary said. "Stone Age technology in space." Captain Danny Ross had been listening to the conversation. He was one of the few officers who had fought in every major battle of the war. "Sir, maybe. That's not such a bad thing. Humans have been fighting with primitive weapons longer than any other species." Gary thought about this. Humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war with simple tools. Other Confederation species had advanced quickly to energy weapons and computer-guided systems. But humans remembered how to fight with rocks and sticks. "All right," Gary decided. "Send word to every ship. Strip out all advanced systems. We're going back to basics." The preparation took 3 days. Engineers removed computer-guided weapons and replaced them with simple projectile systems. Advanced shields were shut down in favor of thick metal armor. Even the life support systems were simplified to mechanical air pumps and chemical oxygen. Generators. Captain Ann Foster was in charge of the human assault ships. Her vessels looked like something from Earth's ancient history. Thick metal hulls covered in spikes and armor plates, the simple cannons sticking out in every direction. "We look like pirates," said Lieutenant Mike Chen, examining his modified fighter. "Good," Ann replied. "Pirates know how to fight dirty." When the Confederation fleet entered the reality-dead zone, everything changed. The smooth, quiet operation of their ships became loud and mechanical. Computer voices were replaced by analog gauges and manual controls. It was like stepping back in time, but the humans adapted faster than anyone else. While alien crews struggled with manual systems, human pilots felt right at home. They had grown up with stories of their ancestors flying primitive aircraft and sailing wooden ships across dangerous oceans. The Vexnari fleet was waiting for them on the other side of the barrier. Their ships had also been stripped down to basic technology, but they looked wrong somehow. The aliens had built their primitive weapons based on computer calculations of maximum efficiency. Every angle was perfect, every surface smooth, human. Ships, by contrast, looked like they had been built by people who enjoyed making things work rather than making them perfect. There were unnecessary decorations, asymmetrical designs, and modifications that served no logical purpose except to look interesting. "All ships attack," Gary ordered. "Remember, no computers, no advanced tactics. Just fight like humans." The battle that followed was unlike anything seen in modern space warfare. Ships rammed into each other like ancient sailing vessels. Crews fired simple projectile weapons across the vacuum of space. Some human ships even used grappling hooks to pull enemy vessels. Close enough for boarding parties. Sergeant Kevin Murphy led one of these boarding parties. His team used nothing more advanced than cutting torches and handheld weapons to break into a Vexnari ship. What they found inside surprised them. "Admiral, the Vexnari crew doesn't know how to fight without their computers," Kevin reported. Over his basic radio, or just standing around looking confused. It was true throughout the battle. The Vexnari had become so dependent on their advanced technology that they had forgotten how to improvise. When their perfect, calculated weapons met human ingenuity, they had no idea how to respond. Captain Paul Davis discovered this when his ship's main gun broke down. Instead of retreating for repairs, he ordered his crew to load the cannon with whatever they could find, spare parts. Food containers, even someone's collection of Earth's music recordings. The improvised ammunition worked better than proper projectiles. The Vexnari shields, designed to stop perfectly shaped metal objects, couldn't handle random junk flying through space at high speed. But the real turning point came when the Vexnari deployed their final weapon. A massive ship appeared at the center of their fleet, larger than a small moon. It was their homeworld's last defense, a planet-killer weapon that could destroy entire star systems. "Admiral, that thing is charging up," reported Science Officer Amy Wells. "If it fires, it'll destroy everything in this sector." Gary looked at the massive weapon and made a decision that would have seemed insane to any logical military mind. Instead of retreating or trying to destroy the weapon, he ordered every Confederation ship to fly directly at it. Captain Wilson protested. "Maybe," Gary replied, "but it's also completely unpredictable." The Confederation fleet charged the planet killer in a chaotic swarm. There was no formation, no careful timing, no logical strategy. Thousands of ships simply flew as fast as they could toward the biggest target they could see. The Vexnari weapon tried to target the approaching fleet, but its targeting system couldn't handle so many random approaches. It was designed to destroy organized enemy formations, not deal with complete chaos. As the Confederation ships got closer, human crews started doing what humans do best. They got creative. Captain Sarah Lee used her ship's waste disposal system to create a cloud of debris that confused enemy sensors. Commander Bill Clark started broadcasting Earth music at maximum volume. Just to be annoying, the planet-killer weapon fired, but its beam missed the chaotic Confederation fleet and instead hit several Vexnari ships. The massive device couldn't rotate fast enough to track targets that moved in completely random patterns. Human ships reached the weapon and began attacking it with everything they had. Simple explosives, metal projectiles, and even crew members with hand tools started taking apart the massive device from the outside. The Vexnari resistance collapsed completely. Their perfect technology was useless against enemies who refused to follow any rules. One by one, their ships surrendered or fled beyond the galactic barrier. Supreme Commander Vex Kyler appeared on the Confederation communication system one last time. The alien looked tired and defeated. "We do not understand you," Vex Kyler said. "Your methods make no sense. Your technology is primitive, yet you have defeated us at every turn." "How is this possible?" Gary smiled. "Because we're human. We don't need to make sense." The war was over. The galaxy was safe. And everyone had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to forget everything. You knew about solving problems and just try something new. Humanity had saved the galaxy. Not with superior technology or brilliant strategy, but with the simple willingness to be completely, wonderfully, unpredictably human.